Attorney General, I deeply apologize. We book out this show. We have no idea what's going to happen in the court in New York. And we just had 30 minutes of flamethrower conversations in front of the court. We had to take it live. And so we thank you so much for sticking with us. We got an audio issue here, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to.
Hey, I think I got you.
There we go. Okay.
Hey,
fantastic.
I appreciate you having me on and covering these important stories.
So we saw your predecessor in front of the court today. I think I'd like to talk about Harrison Butker, but just really quickly, Eric Schmidt in front of the court today. He's now in the Senate. He held your office previously, and you got to stand proud.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm carrying on a legacy of excellence that's left behind by my two predecessors. Josh Hawley, who was my law professor, taught me everything I know about reading the law, is now serving heroically in the United States Senate. And Eric Schmidt, a personal friend of mine who's been very supportive of me. And certainly that's who I immediately succeeded. And so, they leave behind a legacy of excellence that I'm so proud to carry on in their honor and for the people of the state of Missouri. And look, what's happening to President Trump is an illicit witch hunt prosecution. The case has fallen apart. It was never supported by the facts or the law. That was self-evident. That was self-evident before this started. It became more evident as Michael Cohen's credibility, which I don't know, he didn't have any to begin with, but what little he walked into the courtroom with was quickly demolished, and the ulterior motives of the witnesses in the prosecution was laid bare through the evidentiary proceedings in the trial itself. But there's a piece that's missing here. You've extensively covered the bias of the judge, which I think is absolutely true. His family's connections to the Democratic Party were sufficient to impute an impropriety to him and disqualify him from this case. I think his evidentiary rulings have been wrong and are rigged to obtain an illicit conviction of the president. But there's another angle here. The prosecutors themselves are illicitly motivated. Attorneys are guided and controlled by a rule of ethics, rules of professional conduct. And prosecutors are held to a heightened standard of those rules. And they can't be self-interested in the case. And they can't weaponize the criminal justice system to go after a political opponent. And yet what's happening here is the third-ranking official from Biden's Department of Justice, Matthew Colangelo, has been deployed to the state of New York to work for Alvin Bragg to prosecute President Trump. You can't tell me that isn't collusion. That alone is sufficient evidence to disqualify Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo from prosecuting this case. We've demanded certain records from the Department of Justice. We know there's a documented history of the deep state conspiring to target President Trump. Remember those text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok back in 2016? The same thing's going to be true here. We're going to shine the light of truth on that. It's going to undermine the credibility of whatever illegal conviction they may obtain. Ultimately, I think it puts the prosecutors themselves in line for civil liability for violating President Trump's civil rights. And potentially criminal liability as well. At some point, we have to talk about prosecuting the prosecutors. But let's be clear about this. This case was never about a criminal offense. This case was always about taking President Trump off of the campaign trail. And Senator Eric Schmidt and I agree that there are large segments of the population in this country that feel forgotten and that feel that President Trump is one of the only voices we have. And thank God he's fighting back against this kind of illicit prosecutorial witch hunt lawfare and standing in the gap to protect the rest of us.
Yes. This is, again, why we are just a hair late this morning, is because we listened to the man who held your position stand there in front of the court. And Eric Schmidt gave fantastic remarks this morning. Missouri should absolutely stand proud. I don't know if Josh Hawley plans on going there, but we always like it when Josh Hawley speaks as well. So you have a pretty fantastic pedigree there, Mr. Attorney General. So I want to just drill down on something you just said. Can you please unpack for me, how would you get somebody who could legally come after the people who've suborned perjury in this case, who are clearly putting forward liars or deeply disreputable star witnesses against Donald Trump? I mean, it does seem like there are codes of ethics that are being egregiously desecrated in this case via the prosecution. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're absolutely right. I think President Trump was right as well. Look at what President Trump said, that the state of New York is on trial. And that's true. I mean, shame on the judiciary for being in lockstep with the prosecution and allowing these illicitly motivated, conflicted prosecutors to prosecute a sham trial. He should have dismissed the charges on their face. He should have disqualified these prosecutors. He should have dismissed the case at the close of state's evidence, and he should acquit the defendant now, today, and discharge the jury. This was always a sham. Shame on the judiciary for being in lockstep with the prosecution on this. But then, secondly, shame on the disciplinary proceedings in the state of New York for not disciplining the prosecutors on their professional licensure for filing frivolous charges, for being conflicted and being self-interested in the case. We know that Alvin Bragg has litigated against President Trump in civil suits in his capacity working for Letitia James. We know that Matthew Colangelo is a longtime actor on behalf of the DNC and has been deployed by the Biden administration in this illicit witch hunt prosecution. So again, shame on the disciplinary body within the state of New York Bar Association for not sanctioning these illicitly motivated prosecutors. But at the end of the day, again, I think what this transparency is going to do is allow there to be enough, on top of all the other problems in the trial. This is one more layer of reversible error for the appellate court to look at. And I also think, again, when you've got prosecutors that are exceeding the scope of their statutory authority, they are likely waiving their sovereign immunity and exposing themselves to civil suits. That's why, like you described in the earlier segment, shining the light of truth on this issue from every angle, from the illicit nature of the prosecution itself, the illicit motivations of the judge, and now also the prosecutors. I think that is incredibly important in order to expose this for what it is.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, listen, if you come at me with some lie, or if you try to like slander or smear me, and I know this happens to you 12 times a day, that just doesn't matter. Like, bring it on. I don't care. I have literally nothing to hide. But these people are starting to mentally break. I mean, I know you weren't in the courthouse yesterday, as far as my producers tell me, but you know, a judge screaming and going into a tirade and saying, "Are you staring me down?" What, you know, like sending everybody out of the courthouse. It seems like the guy's broken now. It seems like he can't handle the pressure, and Judge Merchan is now cracked.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because clearly the case isn't supported by the facts of the law. They desired an outcome, and they're struggling to achieve that outcome because things are falling apart because they were never put together in the first place. You know that left has problems when CNN is in crisis control mode, when the Clinton News Network, the Communist News Network, is openly saying, "Oh, this is a problem. Cohen's a liar." Like, yeah, the rest of the world knew that before this started, and like suddenly they're surprised by it and are in damage control cleanup mode to try to salvage what little reputation they have left because they realize how bad this is. And I hope that the left understands that there's a boomerang effect. If the rules of the game no longer matter, if we're not going to elevate the rules of the game above the players and the outcomes, what about when the other side's in charge? What happens then? And I'm not even saying break the rules. I'm saying, again, shine the light of truth on this and prosecute the prosecutors if they violated the law.
So, prosecute if they violated the law. This is something I'd like to sort of redirect back to your state. And it seems as though somebody violated the law. There was a Kansas City, not the Kansas City Chiefs X account. I try to do my best to sort of couch Harrison Butker. And we have people on our staff that are actually really close with him. We've been sort of seeing this from 1,000 yards out. I couldn't believe it when the city of Kansas City posted up and doxed him and effectively invited violence against a man who's simply speaking out speaking out in favor of his Christian beliefs. And that seems like a egregious violation of somebody's civil rights, and it seems like a violation, obviously, of somebody's constitutional rights, freedom of religion right in this nation. And what's going to happen then? Here's your post saying, wait a second, like this is illegal under Missouri state law. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, certainly. And again, I am fighting to prevent, eliminate, prohibit discrimination by government employees against free expression of Christian thought, of Christian belief, of any faith belief. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an anti-discrimination measure that's codified in Missouri state law. It's certainly supported by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. But the AGO has unique enforcement authority under the Missouri Human Rights Act to prevent the government from retaliating against individuals who freely express their religion as they are allowed to do, rights given to us by God, not by man, and protected by the Constitution. Harrison Butker is a Christian of the Catholic faith who expressed his ideals at a Catholic university during a commencement address. And he's allowed to do that. He's protected by the Constitution and certainly shouldn't be targeted for retaliatory doxing by city officials. We've demanded accountability, and we want to see the documents related to how the city manages this X account, formerly known as Twitter, how they manage social media, who has access to it, who posted this, why it was done, and what measures are being put in place to protect the public in the future. And what has happened is the city has come out and said, look, we apologize. The buck stops at the mayor's office, but he didn't actually apologize to Harrison Butker. The mayor just said that what they said wasn't wrong. They just did it on the wrong X account. And has now blamed me for somehow stoking racial animosity when race has nothing to do with this at all. And it's dripping with irony that somehow I'm the bad guy and I'm causing discrimination by trying to enforce the statute that prohibits discrimination.
Yeah, you have these like woke pricks who run these accounts and these sniveling little city offices, and they think that everything is... They think that X is real life, right? And that they can just dox somebody. And I bet they did do it on purpose. I mean, I bet they did. I really hope that you leverage the full weight of the state against this. You should make an example of them.
Yeah, I think we have to. Again, this is about protecting Missourians' right to free expression and to be free from discrimination by government officials. Let's focus on what actually happened here. The city used official resources to retaliate against Harrison Butker for his free expression of his Christian beliefs. And you know what else? It's really prophetic. If anybody goes back and actually watches what Harrison Butker said in that 19-minute commencement speech, he opens by saying that the left desires to drive Christian thought, free expression of Christian ideals from the public domain, from public discourse. And that's exactly what the left did in retaliation for the commencement address. I mean, it was prophetic. He was exactly right. They want to silence him, and they're going to use government resources to do it. Not on my watch.
Wow. Okay. So can you talk me through like what the penalties here might be? So let's say you find the employee, you find who approved of this. You find how this all worked out. So, okay. So let's say you have a suspect here, right? What happens then?
Well, at the end of the day, the city needs to terminate anybody involved in this. I mean, that's step one. Step two, the public needs to be ensured that there are systems in place to prevent this from ever happening again. And if the city refuses to comply with our demand for information or refuses to institute systems sufficient to protect the free exercise of religious expression, we'll file suit.
I mean, hey man, we've seen you do it before. We call you the best attorney general in the whole country. You've got some judge a man by his enemies, right? So you got the best enemies. And Media Matters, and George Soros. It's really you're on a roll. You're on a roll here, sir. Okay, so Harrison Butker seems to be safe. I mean, Andy Reid's standing up for him. From what we hear, all of his teammates are standing up for him, even though a lot of them are cowards and won't say anything publicly. It seems like his job's safe. This idea that he's going to be kicked off the team or he's going to get fired. It does seem like there's a not only is he protected, though, from the team, it seems like there's a massive boomerang here and maybe a big lesson to be learned because his jersey sold out. Now everybody in the country knows his name, and so everyone's going to be, people are going to watch him. His fame has increased exponentially, and it seems almost very smart on his part because like now every Christian and every person of faith is going to be like, yeah, love that guy.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I'm proud to live in a state where people are standing up and supporting his right to free exercise of religion. Again, it used to be the rule in this country that we elevated the protections we enjoy under our Constitution, the rule of the law, above the players and the outcomes. And President Biden and his ilk, the radical left, have jettisoned that approach. That's why they're willing to conduct lawfare against President Trump. That's why they're willing to use government resources to retaliate against Harrison Butker and other Christians that deign to speak out for themselves and express their sincerely held religious beliefs. So, yeah, I think that is absolutely true. Yeah, I tell you, it is really shameful that the diversity, equity, and inclusion officer from the NFL bemoaned what Harrison Butker had said and tried to distance the NFL from it. Again, like here you've got somebody who's supposed to be fostering a community of diversity and inclusion, unless it's Christianity. Then that's not allowed and it's not to be included. We don't want that kind of diversity if you're the NFL. I mean, that's what they've said. And so really shame on the NFL for taking that position. And I think, again, it just exposed the corrupt and illicit nature of these DEI programs.
Yeah, I mean, possibly something that you don't wish to opine on here, but we can because it's our show and it's what we believe. I believe that wokeness is its own religion. I believe that it's not that they're anti-Christianity, is that they're against another religion.
Yeah.
They themselves are a cultish,
It's
religious fealty. You must kneel in total and complete religious level zealotry and fealty to a ideology and a tautology of lies, and that these people are angry that Christianity is a competing religion, and so they're attacked. It's literally it's a holy war actually, or an unholy war, perhaps.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, they're actually, it's self-righteousness. They're worshiping themselves, and it's self-destructive because it's who can go furthest to La La Land, who can be the most zany wingnut wins the woke, Warrior of the Year award, and it's absolutely self-righteousness, and it leads to this like level of judgmentalism where if anyone's not towing their line, they're to be canceled, punished, retaliated against, bullied into submission. I mean, it's absolutely dangerous to our society and our culture, and we've got to continue to use the tools at our disposal to fight back.
Yes. Well, we're deeply and profoundly thankful that there's somebody who actually does fight back. It is Missouri. I love Missouri. It's a very sane place. There's very good people who live in Missouri. It's like a Trump plus 10 state. It is wild to see how bold these people are, even knowing that they're not in the majority and that the majority of people don't agree with them. I guess there's kind of the blind religious zealotry to that. Everybody in the state of Missouri, as far as I know, is on Harrison Butker's side here, and on your side too, Mr. Attorney General. You're one of the few guys who fight, and so we're thankful for you, and we're thankful for you being a friend of the show.
Thanks for having me on. Always great to talk to you. Thanks again for covering these important stories.
Godspeed, sir.